So we are coming up on 3 weeks of the illegal and offensive war that we started against Iran, and the Pentagon is already asking for more money. And specifically, they are asking for over $200 billion specifically for this war with Iran. By the way, do you know how much Iran spends on their, we've covered this before, but do you know how much they spend a year on their military? The estimates are like 10 to maybe $13 billion. It just goes to show you that just because we have all this fancy tech and we're so advanced, everything's so sophisticated. Yeah, but it's also very expensive, and you can do a lot of damage with fairly inexpensive equipment. I also want to get into some intelligence reports that have came out and how Trump and Tulsi Gabbard are just lying and even contradicting their own intelligence reports. It truly is crazy. But first, let's touch on the subject of the Pentagon said seeking over $200 billion in funds for the Iran war. The Pentagon has asked the White House to approve more than $200 billion request to the U.S. Congress to fund the war in Iran. The Washington Post reports, citing a senior administration official. Now, do I expect that this will pass Congress? Unfortunately, yes. Because at the end of the day, even though Democrats in this situation get the posture as they are against this war and that they're anti-war and they want it to stop, it's not really what they actually believe. You can tell in their rhetoric. You can tell how they're fighting this fight and how they acted when we knew we were about to start this war. For a lot of in a lot of these on the Democratic side is Zionist, that so they are fully in support of anything that Israel is in support of, and Israel is fully on board for this war in Iran. They are the reason that we are in this war with Iran. So I suspect that they could probably get the votes for this. And again, this is like a win-win for Democrats because they get to come out with bills saying like we're against it, but they know they can safely vote no. And Republicans are obviously going to like vote like to keep the war going, and they get to take the fall for it in the eye of public opinion. And Democrats get to be like, well, we're getting the war we wanted, but we can also pretend to the public like we didn't want this. So it's just insane. Anyways, let's get into the slew of intelligence reports and the like that I want to go over here. First, a Fox News article I want to touch on. DNI Tulsi Gabbard says Trump acted because he concluded the Iranian regime posed an imminent threat. Now, it's funny because, like, all the intelligence from our own intelligence agencies said that they were not an imminent threat. So I guess it is true. Trump was the one that determined it was an imminent threat. Well, Trump via Israel. But it's crazy. Like you're the director of national intelligence. You should be like, you should just stand your ground, be principled. So what if he cans you? I mean, you were supposed to be like this big anti-war crusader not too long ago, but it turns out you were just a grifter. Anyways, Director of National Intelligence Tulsi Gabbard on Tuesday issued a post on X, which she noted that President Donald Trump targeted Iran based on his conclusion that the regime posed an imminent threat. Please stick around because I'm going to show you why they weren't an imminent threat. She issued the post in the wake of Joe Kent's resignation from his role as National Counterterrorism Center Director over his opposition to the Iran war that Trump launched more than 2 weeks ago in conjunction with Israel. Donald Trump was overwhelmingly elected by the American people. No, he wasn't. You won the popular vote by a fucking a hair. This was not a blowout. This wasn't some overwhelming mandate. I hate when they say this. It's so dumb. You barely got through this election with your life, quite literally. Anyways, as our commander-in-chief, he is responsible for determining what is and is not an imminent threat and whether or not to take action he deems necessary to protect the safety and security of our troops, the American people, and our country. Well, isn't it your job to report on those threats? And to her credit, the agencies under her reported correctly about what the real situation was. They were just flat out ignored by the president and their own director. The Office of the Director of National Intelligence is responsible for helping coordinate and integrate all intelligence to provide the president and commander-in-chief with the best information available to inform his decisions. After carefully reviewing all the information before him, President Trump concluded that the terrorist Islamist regime in Iran posed an imminent threat, and he took action based on that conclusion. Kemp publicly shared his resignation letter on Tuesday, asserting that Iran did not pose an imminent threat to the U.S. I cannot in good conscience support the ongoing war in Iran. And by the way, this is coming from fucking Joe Kent. This dude is a bad dude. He is he's an extreme war hawk. And even he's like, all right, man, we're going a little bit too far here. That is insane. Now, he could be doing it just to save face and save his own skin. He was already reportedly under investigation by the FBI before he resigned. So that is also possible. Trump pushed back on Tuesday saying it's a good thing that he's out because he said that Iran was not a threat. Iran was a threat. Every country realized that threat Iran was. The question is whether or not they wanted to do something about it. Okay. I said a couple of weeks ago that it seemed like Fox News commenters were starting to get a little bit of object permanence and start to think a little and read the room, but they all fell into line pretty quick. It's amazing that MAGA before the war, it's 50% support. Then the war starts. Trump says, we're winning. We bombed the hell out of them. And all of a sudden they're like, hell yeah. Let's read some of these. Did Iran truly need to be an immediate threat? Is eventual immediate threat not enough? How many decades of tyranny, human rights abuses, and destabilizing the region are necessary before we recognize that a disarmed, impotent Iran is the best interest of the U.S., and we are just being intentionally obtuse when we suggest that the U.S. somehow kowtowed itself to Israel? We're pretending that the U.S. and Israel do not have shared security interests in the region, or that the Iranian threat to Israel is of no concern to the U.S. Iran is not the ones responsible for destabilizing the region. The people responsible, how much territory has Iran attacked and occupied in the past decade? This war aside, because they are fighting a defensive war right now, so of course they are striking U.S. military assets in other countries. But prior to this war, how many countries did Iran invade? How many countries did Iran bomb? How many countries did Israel bomb? How many genocides has Iran committed in the past decade? How many genocides has Israel committed in the last decade? People don't seem to understand this. And how many countries is Israel occupying portions of their land? How many now? We have Egypt, we have Syria, we have Lebanon. Come on. The whole point of Zionism is a greater Israel. To control the greater complete the greater Israel project, which is territory, including Gaza and land from other sovereign countries. It is insane. Tulsi is Democrats' loss and our gain. Democrats lost their chance at the White House by turning on her. Go Tulsi. Yeah, congratulations. You got a grifter who has no principles or values. If someone threatens you or your family, you don't wait 47 years. They shouldn't have lasted this many years. As always, every president punts it forward to the next one. Trump is not going to play the game with them any longer. It's time to pay the piper. You want to know what? They're not even threatening us. All right. The worst thing they say is death to America. And they say death to America because we have been destabilizing the region for decades. In the 1950s, in 1953, Iran had a fairly robust democracy. And we toppled it to install a dictator. And we just can't fathom why they hate us so much. And since then, we've sanctioned them. We've bombed them. We've told them what they can and can't do with their own economy and weapons. Come on now. Anyways, I can't read these anymore. I'm going to lose my mind. It's making me go way off topic. But let's get into some of these intel reports. Now, I normally wouldn't trust our own intelligence, but in this case, it's a little different because they don't have a reason to come out here and say that Iran wasn't a threat. Like, they have every reason to lie and back the government narrative that Iran was a threat. But it seems like all the intelligence that's coming out is just saying they weren't a threat. It's crazy. So this was like right after we started. This was March 1st, like what, 2 days after we bombed them. Pentagon tells Congress no sign that Iran was going to attack U.S. first, sources say. Trump administration officials acknowledged in closed-door briefings with congressional staff on Sunday that there was no intelligence suggesting Iran planned to attack U.S. forces first, two people familiar with the matter said. Isn't that strange? It's almost like Trump is lying, and Tulsi herself is lying. And this is even from U.S. Intel Chief Tulsi Gabbard. Says Iran was not rebuilding enrichment prior to the war. Tulsi Gabbard, the director of U.S. National Intelligence, said that the United States intelligence community had assessed Iran was not rebuilding its nuclear enrichment capabilities following the U.S. and Israeli attacks last year. So they weren't trying to frantically re-enrich their uranium and get that process going. And they weren't building a nuke. They weren't building a nuke in the first place. We've been over this a million times. It wasn't Iran's policy. It might be now because you've killed all the moderate leaders in Iran, but it just wasn't. They were not going to build a nuke. They were never going to build a nuke. All right, it's that simple. But look, they weren't going to build a nuke. And then here's another piece of intelligence that came out. Trump Iranian missile claim unsupported by U.S. intelligence. So Trump was coming out and saying that they were going to be a threat to us. They were going to be able to strike us. U.S. President Donald Trump's claim that Iran will soon have a missile that can hit the United States is not backed by U.S. intelligence reports and appears to be exaggerated, according to three sources familiar with the reports, casting doubt on part of his case for a possible attack on the Islamic Republic. But there have been no changes, two sources said, to an unclassified 2025 U.S. Defense Intelligence Agency assessment that Iran could take until 2035 to develop a militarily viable intercontinental ballistic missile from its existing satellite lofting space launch vehicles, SLV. So it's almost like, and they've come out and said several times, like, they were intentionally not like pursuing longer range missiles. They were more focused on their own sovereignty and self-defense in the region. Like, AKA, as long as we can strike Israel because they are the main aggressor in the region, we're good. I'm sure if they wanted nukes, they could have had them by now because they've been 2 weeks away, according to Bibi Netanyahu, since like the early 2000s. And if they wanted ICBMs, if they wanted to make giant leaps in that, it would be obvious. There would be intelligence showing it, and they would have probably gotten a lot of help from China or Russia. Like, it is so frustrating, man. Like, we always have enough money, and it's completely bipartisan almost when it comes to like war and tax cuts for the wealthy, but never for better infrastructure, universal health care, a higher minimum wage, or just ensure people have food, have housing. That's just never in the cards. We never have enough money for that. But on a whim, the Pentagon's going to ask for $200 billion, and I reckon they are going to get it. I wouldn't be surprised if they got more. Anyways, that's all I have for this one. Let me know what you think in the comment section down below, and I will see you in the
If you made it to this point in the video, I just want to give a special thank you. If you enjoyed it, please hit that like button down below, and if you really enjoyed it, maybe consider hitting that subscribe button while you're down there. I want to hear your thoughts in the comment section. I will try to reply to any and all comments that I can. Until next time, watch that video on screen.